Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 124 of Super Deformed Gamescast. As always, I am one of your hosts, John, aka at Mr. Megadev on Twitter, and we've got, as you can see on the screen right there, an absolutely massive group of people here with us. This is a big-ass podcast tonight. Yeah, anyway, let's kick it off. So we've got Justin tonight. Justin, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
And Derek, who again I want to stress is now an official member of the podcast. Derek, we somewhat value your contribution, so we appreciate you being here.
And, I count when I'm not fucking up.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll talk about that one later, asshole.
Derek and I are in the intro now, aren't we?
You are actually. Yep. You're both. You're both in the video intro now. Finally, after way too fucking long of not being in there. The advocate of feta and onion pizza on this podcast, Zach, is down in the corner. What's up, man?
Yep.
Are you stinking
ready to defend it?
Feta and onion pizza breath? Are you
ready to defend it?
Disgusting.
Ready.
Disgusting. Brandon, who's not on video, because Brandon's never on video anymore. Brandon, we love you. Hi, buddy.
What's up, dude?
And we have three guests tonight. And so actually, you know what? I'll start with Amanda and Mike first because you guys know them. And Mike Futter and Amanda Farrow, guys, it is always a pleasure to have you on.
Hi.
Very good friends of this podcast. Not your first time here, not your first experience with us, but we really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much.
It's not our first time.
Having us, man.
It's
Seasoned veterans.
Seasoned veterans of SDGC. They're familiar with their shit. I don't know what they're doing here personally. I can't believe you guys continue to put up with us.
Re-sprinkling seasoning on him? Was that what that was?
She was just
like it.
He's so tasty.
I don't
Mike
know if
is
it's gonna pop up at all, like during the thing though. Like that Dr. Tran logo, like icon is actually me because we're technically on two computers in the same office in order to get like multiple headsets going.
It's
so
fine.
I am Dr. Tran, a real doctor.
I was curious as to who that was.
I am Dr. Tran.
It's a really long story.
If you've ever seen that movie Unfriended, that's actually the ghost sitting in the podcast right now. It's gonna start.
Yeah,
it's gonna start going nuts in the chat in a minute. Yeah, that's gonna be how we all meet our end right here live on this video games podcast.
You know what? After the day we've had today, okay.
Yeah.
I am Dr. Tran, the ghost of the podcast.
So
John, introduce our last guest, buddy.
I'm getting there, man. I'm getting there.
You're so slow.
Man, shut up. Let me. I gotta, you gotta trust me. Let Video Game Dad quarterback this thing. And then we've got Josh Silverman from Constantly Calibrating. Dude, you're wearing a branded T-shirt. Look at you, man.
Yeah, no, I literally changed. Well, I was just been in traffic for about 2 hours to drive a 30-minute drive just to get on this podcast, and I immediately hopped in the shower, got out, thought I'm gonna wear a branded shirt. Why not?
That's the dedication we demand.
You wasted.
All right, not that I'm stalking you, but where do you live?
Tempe, Arizona.
You wasted your fucking time rushing here.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. No, I didn't just rush here. I rushed all the way into Phoenix to drop my kids off, to rush all the way back here so I could be on the show. And then I get to rush all the way back as soon as we're done here.
I can see Josh explaining to his wife, "Honey, you don't understand. I've got to be on fucking SDGC tonight. This is the night." This is we as Brandon said, this is the
branded shirt for Game Daily.
You should get branded shirts for yourself. Then.
I should.
I
have Deadpool on right now.
Nice.
We're actually going to come up.
Dragon Age Couture.
We're actually going to come up with uniforms for SDGC. We're all going to wear matching uniforms, kind of like the X-Men. It's going to be
weird.
it's black leather, and it's going to be great.
As long as it's the pattern button down, then I'm in.
Instead of an X, it's socky. I'll allow it.
Yeah, it's gonna be like entirely yarn.
Yeah, it's gonna
just
be
like full body yarn.
Oh my god, it's good.
By the end of the hour and a half, each of us look like lobsters underneath from all the itching.
Just sweating.
Oh my god. Get
Gross.
this yarn
So
body
it's the
suit
only
off me.
girl here.
Yeah, no, it's bad.
It's
Sorry.
bad,
Not a good idea.
Amanda, you know us. It's only going to get worse from here.
I'm gonna make it worse.
I know you. I hope you do. I hope you do. That's the best kind of worse. Josh, tell us a little bit about Constantly Calibrating, if you don't mind, for anybody in chat who may not be familiar with you guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was actually fun. I was listening to Justin, my creative director's appearance on your show on my drive back over here, and excellent. I was actually impressed with his explanation. But Constantly Calibrating is a podcast and a streaming content creation team thing. We're doing it about 6.5 years now. We do a series of different podcasts. We do Constant Calibrating Podcast, which is a guest interview show. We do the Mental Health Breakdown, which is a discussion about mental health issues and things of that nature. We're premiering another new show, essentially a gaming news podcast. And then we have a pen and paper show coming out in a couple months, and essentially just try to do passionate, interesting content. Yeah, and we're on Mixer. Is where we stream.
I've met you guys in person, and you have the most passionate content I've ever experienced. I'm just throwing it out there. Okay. Very good.
It takes a lot of passion to really drunkenly film Justin creating an entire wrestling character on the spot to challenge you.
So you like beer? You like beer?
I was drinking beer that night, particularly, yeah. And I personally just got a wine sponsorship, so I'm learning how to drink wine.
Jesus. All right.
Well, what you do is you pour it into the glass.
Yeah, you pour it in the glass and then you pour it into your mouth. That was what I learned on Monday night.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Yep. I drank like 3/4 of a bottle during a stream. It was a time.
You're ready for the advanced rules. You're good.
Oof, that's a headache.
That's yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and kick this video game talk off. Or we could just talk about feta and onion pizza, Zach, if you want. Like we took out the merits of
What
how
wine does that go with, though?
I feel like every week when we have new guests, John wants to bring up old shit, but feta and onion is good pizza. I'll defend it.
No,
We talked about this the last time we were on.
yeah, moratorium
God,
on feta and.
Okay, it's over. We're not talking about
It was literally an entire episode.
entire episode of feta and onion pizza and cheese on apple pie. It's good shit. It's the content people crave.
Oh, cheese on apple
Oh
pie.
my god, we talked about that too. I'm gonna crawl under there.
John, please bring us to real topics.
Very well, very well. So tonight we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the crossplay. For Sony's finally on board with the PS4 and crossplay between Xbox, Switch, and I'm assuming PC. We're going to talk about the Telltale situation, which is why one of the reasons Matt and or Mike and Amanda are here. I don't know why I said Matt. I'm tired. And since
There you go. You already knew that.
I
It's
know.
Okay.
Mike has written some really interesting stuff about the situation at Telltale, and Amanda has laid down those editing skills. So they are very knowledgeable about what's going on there, and we're going to really value their input. But first, before we do any of that, I want Zach to talk just a little bit about Forza, because we got a review code that dropped for us about 4 hours before the embargo.
Yeah.
Zach, why don't you go and kick it off?
Sure. So I've been playing Forza since Monday night. So it's the latest installment from Playground Games, who some might remember were just acquired by Microsoft in the beginning of the summer. So this is kind of a big deal for them. And it's more Forza Horizon, which is a good thing. It's like the strongest racing series that I've played in the last decade.
The reviews score like just insane.
Yeah,
very well.
Good.
So we haven't gotten our review done, obviously, because we got it pretty late. But just from an objective standpoint, it's the highest rated racer in the last 9 years, I think.
That's unbelievable. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's up there.
Including Project Cars as well, huh?
Well, now you make me nervous that I was wrong. But yeah, I mean, so what I played of it, I should probably stick to that. So I played about 10 hours of it. I should probably stick to what I've done. No, fucking called out. But no, so I played about 10 hours of it. I've experienced each of the seasons once, and a couple of them more than once. Once you get into the core of the game, it actually becomes kind of a live service with the seasons, where it changes, real world time, kind of way, where like when you first start, it's kind of on rails in the seasons, and you kind of control it. And then once you're in the live service, almost Destiny-like, the world kind of changes around you. Which is really cool. It's a weird way to experience a racer. But one of the things I appreciate about it so far is that Forza Horizon 3 gave you a lot of control in the way you wanted to move around its space, to the point where I was overwhelmed frequently with making big decisions. And this is a smaller world, a smaller environment to kind of explore. But the changing seasons kind of keep it fresh. I mean, there's a shitload of content. It's a lot. I don't know. It's a lot of Forza. It's a lot of Forza Horizon. I don't know. I don't really have any concrete thoughts on it besides, like, if you like Forza, you're probably gonna like Forza Horizon 4. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't fix any of the problems that Microsoft has with the first party games, but I don't know. I'd love to answer some questions if anyone has any.
I've actually got a question. If you don't, and then,
perfect.
and then
Thank you. Save me.
So, I've got a very simple question. The only racers I've ever really enjoyed are like, kart type racers. Like I've got a very soft spot in my heart for those. But realistic style racers like Gran Turismo, Forza have never been my cup of tea. With that being said, is this doing anything at all that's going to change my mind about that genre?
So I would categorically keep it away from simulation racing games. It's very much an arcade racer, and it's definitely an arcade racer, and it comes with the baggage of it's not trying to be realistic. You can pretty much goof around in the world. One of the things that I think is really cool, although I can't test it during the review period because there's just not that many players online, is there are competitive modes that are things like Halo's Infected, but you're in cars, and so it's almost like these, which is like kind of cool. In theory, again, they don't have anything going on right now for me to really check it out, so we'll have to see how it works in execution. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to find. You're not going to find a Mario Kart-like experience, but I would not call it a competitive racer. One of the things I've liked about Forza, especially this generation, is that it's taken the emphasis out of placing first, second, and third. Because one of the things that I find frustrating in a racer is that if I do not get a high place, I will just restart the race, and that's not fun. And so one of the things that Forza has worked really hard to do is that as long as you're placing well, and you're not using too much of the rewind feature, which is like, for those who don't know, if you goof up in Forza, you can press a single button and it'll rewind you, and you can keep doing that until you get it right. Which is cool.
Was it that added that, or was that in it from right from the first
I don't know about how long, but I remember Forza Motorsport 4 had it on the Xbox 360.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
It's been around. But it's a cool feature. It's definitely a good way to get you into it. But beside the point, if you're not using that feature a lot, and you're just going through a race, like you can get 8th place in a race, and the game will reward you with a ton of money and experience, like you would get if you were coming in first. And so I have never really done a race in Forza Horizon 4 yet where I've really felt like, oh shit, I should really redo that one, because it doesn't matter. The game doesn't care. Nobody's ever like chiding you for like they want you to do better than you're doing, which is something I can really appreciate. It's a very casual experience.
So it's more along the lines of like Need for Speed.
100%, but like, it reminds me of Underground series more than like, what we've seen from Need for Speed in the last decade.
Sure, yeah, I hear ya.
Yeah, I really fucking like it. But it's
I love
hard.
racing games, so
Yeah.
this is great.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I wish I could say something more concrete, but just like with 10 hours and like it being a live service game, like I almost don't want to do a traditional review on it because like it's supposed to be like they're saying, what if we did Destiny but racing? And like,
So you just need to put together a living review.
yeah,
Well,
I guess so.
A poem about how much I love living reviews.
Yeah, I mean,
Once was a man from Nantucket.
No, Michael. No. Nice,
Um,
man.
Hey, Zach, I've got a quick question.
Perfect.
I've heard a little bit about the season stuff.
Yeah.
and I know it's more than just basic handling and visual differences.
Yeah.
How does it change things when the seasons change?
So, I mean, it really does come down to like what and how you can explore certain spaces, right? Like one of the big features on this map is a big fucking body of water. It's a big lake. And then like in the frozen seasons, especially for the off-road racing, like they have things where you're going to race across this frozen lake, and it's a kind of a disaster because your car is like this. But
Still
it's
looks really cool though.
That's
Yeah,
really cool. That's a cool idea, though.
it's very cool. Like don't get me wrong. Like it is a gimmick, but it's a good gimmick. I haven't looked at Forza Horizon 3's map, but it feels decidedly smaller, this one, compared to its previous iteration, which surprised me. But it feels like a tighter experience as a result, because instead of a really, really vast open world, which was what Australia was, it's a very, very tight, smaller place where they feel like they are kind of meditating on the strongest parts of Horizon, which to me is the off-roading stuff.
Cool. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else got a
I'm gonna have
question
to
they
get
want
this
to?
game, aren't I?
Anybody else got a question they want to throw at Zach about Forza?
That's okay if people don't, but just a reminder, so we will have some coverage of it in the next week, hopefully a living review, because that sounds like it's a lot less pressure to do that way. But also, the game is out tomorrow for people who want to pay $100, because Microsoft does their Ultimate Edition. Otherwise, if you wait until Tuesday, you can either get it for the normal $60, or you can just get it for the $9.99 for Game Pass. So, I don't know. I mean, I like the game, and how... Don't spend $100 unless you really fucking like Horizon. I don't know.
So we've actually got a question from chat.
Perfect.
About Forza, Zach, and this is actually I think that's Rebecca. I think it's Rebecca Valentine actually.
Okay.
She says.
Aw.
Rebecca says, yeah, she was on here last week, guys. She says, Forza, how is it just for someone who wants to chill, just like drive and breathe? That's
Perfect.
Rebecca.
Yeah. It's very, very good for that. One of the things that I really like about the game is you get a bunch of currency and you also get experience, not even from doing events. You can just cruise around the open world and goof around, and the game will reward you for that. I mean, you definitely get more. So the game does this really weird, kind of icky thing where it's a slot machine, but it's never a microtransaction thing, so it doesn't get that gross. But like as you gain experience, they're like, hey, here's a slot machine, and it's just gonna spin, and you're gonna get like cars and money, and you can use it to buy other cars and clothes. It's weird.
I've seen, like.
Yeah, it's weird.
Used to look sexy. That's
It is weird.
Yeah, your Drivatar. Yeah, like if your Drivatar isn't wearing short shorts and duck boots, get the fuck out.
Please tell me, please tell me
I
Drivatar
was gonna
is
put mine
the
in
actual
before,
name.
so.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
they're
they've
called
been
Drivatar
Drivatar
for a while.
That's
for a long
fantastic.
time.
That-
Yeah.
I don't play
Avatar
simulation
It
on
is
the
games.
known.
Xbox
So.
One.
It is known. But no, so you can let it be a super casual game. One of the things I like is it's got a really, really robust photo mode that gives you a lot of control. But in addition to photo mode, there's a thing called drone mode, where you can just get into a drone and fly around the map, and you're not really tied to the restrictions of a photo mode. It's really just meant to like go sightseeing and kind of cruise around. Again, like for Game Pass, it's such an I say this about every Microsoft game now, but like with Game Pass, it's such a low barrier to entry that like it's really hard to not recommend somebody try it if they're curious that way.
Give us our check,
Yeah.
Aaron. Where's our check, Aaron? Showing that Microsoft love. Send us our check. We'll take.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll take a sponsorship too. I'm totally
Okay.
fine with that.
Okay.
Between the
Yeah,
17
sorry, that
and
was kind of-
SDGC.
Sorry, that was kind of a flat response. I just, again, like with a live service game, it's hard after 10 hours. But hopefully we'll have something a little bit more
That's
concrete in the coming days.
Well, and speaking of that, Zach, now that Julian is in chat, who is at Kogasu on Twitter, I want to give him a very special shout out. Now that we're doing pre-recorded content on the weekends, we're also going to be putting out video reviews since we're starting to get review codes for some of the bigger games. I'm working on a review for one of the bigger October releases that we'll have out on Embargo Day. Julian put together a little intro jingle for us for our pre-recorded stuff, and so Julian, we really
nice.
really appreciate that. It
Yeah,
sounds good.
that was really
too.
sweet.
Like, yeah, thanks, buddy. We love you, man. So we'll go ahead and jump into. You know what? Let's talk about crossplay first. Because I'm still kind of sore about not getting Castlevania Symphony of the Night on Switch. I understand why, but I'm still upset about it. I haven't quite
Still hurt.
reconciled myself with it yet. Yeah. So anyway, we'll go and talk about crossplay. So answer me this, and I don't care who it is. When was crossplay between Switch and Xbox first announced?
E3.
Yep, E3.
I distinctly remember because
Yeah.
during that weird gap after the Last of Us gameplay and then the rest of Sony's conference, I remember Sean Layden was like at a table with panelists like talking, and he said, "Oh, we love hearing your feedback on Twitter and stuff." And then the next day, the whole internet had some fucking feedback for him.
Yeah, really, right?
So
Yeah.
out of nowhere,
Well, I
right?
mean, especially after Minecraft and the Xbox and Nintendo crossover, and they were really blatant about it.
They were.
And that
Well-
was like what?
Hold on a second. Was it at E3? Because Rocket League has been out on Switch for a while.
Rocket
Yeah,
League
I was
was
gonna
before
say.
E3.
I thought that was like.
Rocket League was, I
So
think, earlier in the
crossplay-
year,
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was
and
just
then
maybe it was just
Minecraft was the
Fortnite
second
then.
big one, and that was at E3. And
Well,
and
but
between the
Minecraft,
two,
no,
Minecraft
Minecraft
was
was just a
announced
couple
last
months
year.
ago.
well, but they
Fortnite
announced it
was-
at E3, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, hold on a second. No,
Yeah.
Minecraft was announced last year because Better
Yeah.
Together
Was it? No.
to be out this summer.
It was And then they
I'm sorry,
rolled
Better Together was supposed to be out like
last year.
last year.
But they rolled it out around E3. So that's when their marketing campaign came out. So we saw Nintendo and Xbox going like, hey, want to hang out? And Nintendo's like, sure, I'll come to
Yeah.
your place.
So I maybe this year has just been a disgusting blur. But I looked up the first time Minecraft was announced for crossplay, and it was June of this year. Like I'm looking at an Engadget article from this year, from June.
Yeah, Better Together hit Switch, and Switch was late
Yeah.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
in June. But Better
Yeah.
Together was announced for Switch
Okay.
last year.
It was last
Yeah.
year.
It
Yeah.
came out
Okay.
for Xbox and PC
Yeah.
last
Last
year
year.
So-
when they started rolling out the new Bedrock
Yeah.
version as
Yeah.
opposed to
That's what I thought.
So Switch and Xbox crossplay has been in the works for a number of months.
Okay.
But I think the big thing that pushed it over the edge was Fortnite was finally confirmed for Switch
Yeah.
around E3.
Yeah.
So when you had that happen, and all of a sudden you got the biggest game in the world saying, "Hey, we want to have, we're still going to be crossplay, but it's going to be Xbox and it's going to be Switch and it's going to be PC." The big thing that kicked it over the cliff, because we're all doing Spartan kicks lately, was the fact that you could not unlink your account from PlayStation and then link it to Xbox. So anybody who had been progressing on PS4, because that's where Battle Royale originally launched, and that's where Save the World originally launched. If you couldn't simply just take all the stuff you had earned, all of your Battle Pass stuff, and start playing on the Switch.
Right.
So now that they've finally said, okay, we're going to do this, Epic's done the right thing, and they announced it very quickly. It's like, okay, we're going to have account mergers. For all of you people who said, screw Sony, we're going to go play on Xbox, PC, and Switch because I can do crossplay there, we're going to allow you to merge your two accounts.
That'll roll out in November.
Yep.
The other weird thing about Fortnite is that, like on PS4, you could crossplay with PC and mobile. You just couldn't do Xbox and
that was really
it
strange.
was just weird.
Which is like
walled garden that was like a Venn diagram.
So yeah, it was really weird, and also like I think the Switch kind of ignited it too, because that was how the accounts had worked for a few months on Xbox, but people weren't really sharing accounts between Xbox and PlayStation for wherever they wanted to play. And then Switch being a handheld system, people were like, "Oh, I'm gonna just link my account," and that's when it kind of exploded.
Well,
and I think part of it too
is the
is
first images of you can't link your account to Switch because it's linked to another system.
Yeah.
Was when people started upset.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of it too became a lot more like tangible for people when it actually hit the Switch, because so you had crossplay between like Xbox and then like PC and mobile, but it's when it was only between Xbox and PlayStation and they weren't crossplay compatible. People go in their heads, a lot of casual players are like, okay, well, they're competitors. Of course, it's not going to be the case. But then when it hits the Switch, and then this huge game, just like why it became a big deal around with Minecraft. Once it's suddenly like, okay, well, Microsoft and Nintendo are playing nice. Well, that's when people started looking at Sony like, all right, what's going on, guys?
Well,
And that's also when.
Just the crossplay.
I mean, that was also. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. So I would argue it's not just cross-play; it's also the unified purchases.
Yeah.
Cross progression, right?
Yeah, because for Minecraft, for Fortnite, it's cross progression and cross purchases. But when Microsoft announced like, hey, we're going to allow all of your Minecraft stuff to work everywhere, and then it was like, oh, Master Chief, your Halo pack is going to actually work on Switch. You're going to have an Xbox Live login on Switch. People were like, wait, so I can buy things only once and they'll work on multiple systems?
What sorcery?
That is the dream.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's Sonic. That's Sonic and Mario in the same game, guys.
I mean, that's when I switched playing Overwatch from PlayStation to PC. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted all my skins to come with me, and they didn't.
No.
Well, and like I think the crazy thing about this whole situation, like if you're just looking at like Microsoft and Nintendo, when they first announced this, like correct me if I'm wrong, but they were really in PS4's face about it. Like they were, there was that whole better together thing, and you had the Xbox logo and you had the Switch logo, and
I remember like it was one of the Xbox Twitter accounts. I can't remember which one. Tweeted at like Nintendo like the night Fortnite launched. It was like, hey, want to play Fortnite tonight?
Yeah.
And then there was the Minecraft ad a couple months back for Better Together that had both logos side by side and everything, with it made a really big deal out of it.
So I think Better Together was originally announced at E3 17.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that what happened was
Sounds
Sony got pressured in interviews because everybody went, well, what about Sony? Because they announced.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft said, well, you'd have to ask Sony about that.
Yeah.
And Sony's like, and there was a lot of things. I think there was like, well, we're responsible for our players, and our players, like, players rely on us.
That
to be
holds
safe.
no water
It was
with
such an
anyone. Like,
Nintendo
yeah.
Absolutely not.
What that was when Jim Ryan said that we need to protect the kids.
Oh my
children,
God,
or something
yes.
line, right? Yeah.
That's the one.
I remember
See,
that.
But you can't say that when Nintendo's like, no, it's cool, we're in.
Won't,
Yeah.
won't Mario?
Yeah.
Won't the House
Literally
of
the
Mario
family
think of the
console.
children?
And like I remember,
Oh,
I remember back then, like when the issue was kind of just Minecraft, like that one, because it requires an Xbox Live login, like that is the only one where I can kind of see them having a point, because then, you know, Microsoft can directly email your customers and stuff like that. Like I don't agree with it, but like I can kind of see that one. But like the point where it really started to turn for me was when Psyonix started talking about Rocket League. And they were talking about how they had it up and running, and literally all they had to do was get the okay from Sony, and it would be on.
Right.
And
Okay.
that was
So
GDC that was announced at GDC 2016. That was the last GDC that I attended with Game Informer. And I remember sitting in the press room with Matt Burtz, and this kind of popped up, and we covered it. And I actually happened to be going to a PSVR event later that day. But this is back when Adam Boyes was still at Sony. So I sat down with Adam. I had an interview with him about a couple of things. And I brought it up. I'm like, so Psyonix says they have it running. Microsoft has said, sure. And what does Sony say? And this is March 2016. What Adam told me was, we'll do whatever the developers want us to do. Which I think Adam gave us, gave me a really honest and earnest answer at the time. The problem is that, a year later, or 15 months later at E3 2017, you've got the
1 year later.
Yeah, you got what about the kids? And clearly, so Psyonix had wanted that. And Fortnite, if you recall, there was a blip where for about 12 hours.
It was 12 hours.
It was right before the Game Awards last year.
Quote,
I remember that.
unquote.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because it started blowing up, and like the Game Awards were what? They were
December 7th
December
or something like
7th,
that.
yeah.
and the battle royale part of this game came
Was
out.
just taking off.
July.
It was just starting
It
to
was-
hit critical mass.
Well,
at
Yeah,
that
Yeah.
point.
that
like a
was
year
just when it was
ago,
getting popular.
2 years ago to 2 years ago.
No, it was 1 year.
1 year
ago.
ago.
1 year.
It was 1 year ago.
Today. I think
It
they
was
announced
yesterday.
it yesterday. Okay, but it was exactly. So we're talking. It had what, 2 months of
2
runway,
months. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it hit critical mass really
and
fast.
PUBG was still
And-
Yeah.
the king.
and Keeley actually asked somebody from Epic about it at the Game Awards, didn't
Yeah.
he? Didn't
It
he?
was a mistake.
It was hilarious. We're like, oh, we didn't know that was happening.
Yeah.
Wink,
So
nudge.
I want to so like what we learned this week, right? So like I think we can all agree that this announcement for PS4 crossplay came out of fucking nowhere, right? Like I was floored by it, right?
It came out
absolutely
absolutely.
out the
Yeah, yeah.
And
I woke
so,
up, I was like, what?
We tried
yeah.
getting a comment. We wrote about it at GameDaily.biz, and we went to Sony and we're like, so what you guys doing?
and,
Yeah.
well, so
Why today?
I want to kick it up to Josh. Kind of loop Josh in the conversation. Josh, by the way, I should have explained the rules earlier, man. There's no rules here. Just jump in and start fucking swinging, man. Like
Yeah.
there's
SDGC
no...
Battle Royale.
Yeah, that's that's
This
what
is the
this is.
Thunderdome.
Well,
Dr.
It's
Tran
over
wins,
now.
Fatality.
Yep.
it's over now. You,
It's
Y'all
We
are
got
in
enough
for it.
players for it.
So Josh, I want to ask you, and then we'll just kind of kick it off to somebody else. When this was announced, what was your reaction? Because we had been here. I mean, Sony, I think, up until this point, seemed pretty fucking ironclad about the fact that they were not going to
Yeah.
have any sort of a crossplay functionality, and quite honestly, they didn't need to. As the market leader, they really didn't need to.
I mean, my response really was just like the same things that we've been kind of said. Why now? It was just like that response of hot lol. You know, it was kind of my mindset. I was taking my kids to school and I just like looked. I was looking at news. I think it was actually a retweet of yours, John, which is when I saw it. And I was like, wait, what? Why now? What's the great, but what's the reasoning behind it? But that being said, I mean, the idea of being able to play with everyone everywhere, isn't that? I mean, it's already been said. That's the dream. You know.
Yeah.
But I think right now it's just for Fortnite, right?
Yeah, right
It
now
is.
it's just for
just
Fortnite.
but you know that Rocket League.
Oh,
is
yeah.
gonna be up.
Everyone's fucking watching how this is gonna
Yeah,
go.
the post said that the open beta is in Fortnite, but they will be looking into supporting it for more games with their third party partners in the
Except
future.
for
It'll go
Fallout
Fortnite, it'll go Rocket League, and
Yeah.
then it'll spread out from there. One of
I
my favorite things
still-
about this
I
whole thing
still
was
am-
Bethesda. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, Bethesda. I'm still curious to see what they do with Minecraft because that specifically requires an Xbox Live login. I would not be surprised if they do not allow it for Minecraft. We'll see how that
Just
shakes out.
because they don't want people logging into Microsoft or Xbox
Yeah.
Live on their PS4s.
Josh, do you want to finish your thoughts? Sorry about that.
Yeah, please.
No, it's
Sorry.
okay. No, I
no,
agree
Justin, go ahead,
on
you're fine.
the Minecraft thing, but on the Bethesda thing, I was to say my favorite thing was them throwing shade
Yes.
that the only reason Fallout 76 was not going to have the crossplay thing was because of Sony, and then the Sony thing gets announced, and they're just like,
And Pete Hines is like, get off my back, okay? We're launching a game next month.
oh, the game comes out next month.
great.
Yes, no,
The
we're
way
not
that
going to
he
just suddenly do
handled
it.
I think we have to do this, guys.
Do not,
Yeah.
Uncle Pete. Just Uncle Pete's gonna Uncle Pete, and that's great.
Yeah.
Uncle Pete might need a break.
Yeah.
I just thought it was great.
A lot going
He's
on
still
at
recovering from
Bethesda.
August travel.
we
Yeah,
had like a quick internal discussion about this. We just love the fact here that like Todd Howard was throwing legit shade at Sony over this decision. I mean, legit shade, and then it gets
Super
announced.
shade.
It gets announced, and everybody's like, "Well, obviously we're going to get it for Bethesda because they were criticizing Sony for a year."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Absolutely fucking not."
Well, and like to be clear, I don't think to be clear, like Pete wasn't like, no, this is never coming. Pete's like, listen, we gotta launch a game and then we'll talk, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think we should ever take that as like them saying we're never gonna do it. I mean,
Yeah.
people were
It's a little bit
pressuring.
late in the process.
Yeah, well, somebody was talking to David Serland, who, if people don't know, I don't blame you. He's a big guy at DICE. They're getting ready for Battlefield 5. People are like, hey, are we going to do crossplay on console? And he's like, listen, his exact response is, they announced this yesterday. Like, we'll see. But I think
it takes time to implement.
100%. And I listen, like, this isn't why they did it, but I think it's interesting that this followed so Microsoft the night before had their Inside Xbox, which is usually a lukewarm affair. But one of the more interesting things was they said that we're going to do keyboard and mouse support, and it's coming to Warframe, which kind of is an implication that they're maybe going to do crossplay with Warframe on PC. And like,
Sure they will.
I think we're just seeing this escalation of like, okay, the floodgates are open, so like, what weird shit can we try? And we're seeing Microsoft do that. Now we're seeing Sony do that. I don't think Sony announcing was a reaction to Microsoft's thing. I think that would be way
No.
too fast for a corporation.
No, I mean they had announced at least, I think it was 6 weeks ago. Hey, I think it was maybe around Gamescom, maybe it was before Gamescom.
For what?
When Sony said, we don't have anything to say right now, but
Yeah.
we think our fans are going to be happy.
Right,
It was
right.
just before
Yeah.
Gamescom. It was out a week before.
Yeah, I think what maybe struck me as weird about Sony's thing is, or at least the follow-up was like, oh, but the merger isn't going to be ready till November. It's like kind of the weird thing where it was like, I kind of wish you had sat on it for a couple weeks, but
That's
Yeah.
Epic saying that, though. That's Epic
That's an
saying
Epic.
that.
That's- that's true. And like, it's also really hard to get any, like, it's going to be hard for Epic to get any message across in 3 weeks when Red Dead is out, right? Like when they're ready to
Right.
launch it.
Point.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think
I-
I don't know that that's the case. I think that Fortnite can cut through that and say, hey, if all they're saying is, oh, by the way, you can now merge your accounts, people are going to be like, all right, I'm going to put Red Dead down for 2 seconds. I'm gonna
Yeah. Well,
And
and
also, the big thing to remember is that these are not necessarily overlapping audiences.
right. One of them's a free fucking game.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, our 14-year-old is going to play Fortnite, and she sure as shit isn't going to be playing Red Dead Redemption.
Right.
Yeah.
I want
Right. That
I
too.
want to address two things. One, somebody asked why now, and I think the why now is important, for a couple of reasons. Johnny Cullen, we were talking about this in our news chat,
Yeah.
pointed out
In
that
our
this
newsroom.
was the anniversary of Fortnite. The new season was starting the next day. So in terms of announcing it now, there was that short-term synergy with some big things that were happening. But I want to talk about kind of the long-term view. If Sony let this go on into 2019, they were going to have a big problem on their hands because Microsoft had established itself as the cross-play friendly of the two core consoles, right? Switch is in a class all of its own because of the form factor. There's still that whole philosophy like it's Microsoft versus Sony, and Nintendo's over here doing this. So if Microsoft goes into the next generation of hardware, remember, we saw things flip this generation. Microsoft had the clear advantage with the Xbox 360. Sony now has the clear sales advantage with the PlayStation 4. Microsoft goes into 2019 and says, we're the guys. We are the crossplay guys. Not only that, we've already told you that all of your existing library is going to be forward compatible.
Yep.
So we're the good guy. Sony can't wait until 2019 to announce that.
Yeah.
They have to make sure that everybody has largely forgotten that they were the straggler on crossplay. Then it's just everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it the same way. Everybody's feeling pretty like friendly. We're gonna do handshakes in public and everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing about this particular innovation is you can't walk this. Once
Exactly.
crossplay is there, people will expect it. This is not like Amazon Prime winding down its discounts. That stuff was going to end at some point. It had to. This is not like Games with Gold or PlayStation Plus potentially going away at some point because it's no longer a viable strategy. Remember, Game Pass might end up surpassing what Games with Gold does. So those things may not last forever. Crossplay, this is the new normal.
Yep.
And I think if
Absolutely.
anybody goes to try to walk this back, it's going to be very challenging. It's going to be a PR nightmare.
Do you? Yeah. Sorry, just one quick thing, and it's more a question for everybody else. Do you think that this also opens the floodgates to every game having this cross progression thing? I'm mostly asking this because I've owned Rainbow Six Siege on 3 consoles or 3 machines. And I really should.
This is the new adjustment.
Why? What is you doing? Why?
It's just really fun, and again, without crossplay, I want to play with each of my friends.
See, that kind of touches on something that I wanted to say, like, and then I've got another point I also want to add on at the end, but it's going to be a while, I think, before the major AAA games go for it. I mean, Fortnite is an absolute juggernaut. Like, they want you to be able to play everything everywhere, but like Call of Duty is probably going to drag their heels on it. I imagine like EA and Activision want. Yeah, they want people buying multiple copies, and they want people buying multiple microtransactions on multiple platforms. I think they'll eventually come around, but I think it's going to be slow. It's not going to be like an overnight shift.
Yeah. Well, I think you raise an interesting point of like, especially with a game like Call of Duty, which still has like the archaic, like, hey, 30 days exclusive content.
Yeah.
Like a game like Call of Duty where they have exclusive content on one platform before another is like going to be, I assume from an infrastructure perspective, kind of difficult for crossplay. Maybe.
Yeah. And like Destiny has like exclusive stuff for a year. And it's and you guys know me, I want nothing more than Destiny crossplay. Like that would be my favorite thing ever, because like a lot of the people I used to play
never gonna happen
nightly with moved to PC and stuff. So, but as far as like the timing question we were talking about, I'm almost wondering if the crossplay thing and Sony taking a long time to implement that was partially due to the CEO changes. They did Andrew House retired this year, and Kodera, is that his name? The new guy?
I actually don't know. I don't know. I thought
That might be right.
yeah, that might be right. I'm not sure.
They
Actually.
announced those infrastructure changes April.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's John Kodera.
John Kodera.
They announced at the end of last year that they were going into effect at the beginning of April. I almost wonder if that's kind of been part of the reason they haven't been able to act on some of these things that people have been, asking for. Because sometimes CEO changes can be hard times to make, like adjustments, and sometimes especially when you have to go back to Japanese execs from like a Western branch, like that can be very frustrating. I know like Nintendo has been impacted by that a lot. So I almost wonder if that might have been part of it. And now that, it's been a few months, they got everything up and running. They're like, okay, now we can finally start shifting things a bit.
So I think that's a good point.
So I think my take on this is kind of, it's, this whole situation reminds me of that exchange a little bit between Batman and the Joker in The Dark Knight, where the Joker says, "There's no going back. You've changed things," and now that we're here at this point, I mean, let's take a moment to appreciate that, like, really, for this industry, how historic this whole thing is. I mean, for the first time ever, people across 3 consoles, like the 3 big players, can all play games together on one network, and that to me is a position that I never thought we would find ourselves in.
Because the console wars.
Exactly, and so it's kind of like I'm still trying to process the whole thing, right? And
huge props to Epic for ending. They had the biggest game in the world. They're making money hand over fist, and they have been strong proponents for this since it was clear that Fortnite was becoming a phenomenon. I don't think I have seen a major gaming company push that kind of consumer friendly forward-thinking approach in the same way that Epic has.
And so,
they must have been throwing their weight around with their various partners and stuff.
And so I think there's two takeaways from that, right? One, going forward, any console that doesn't have crossplay with the other in the next generation is gonna wind up on the cutting room floor. It's just not gonna be. It's not gonna be something that is acceptable. It's like backwards compatibility. I think the next PlayStation console will absolutely have backwards compatibility. I don't think you can afford not to. And then going forward, I don't think at this point we've ever seen an influential game on the level of Fortnite. At this point, I would not hesitate to call it one of the most influential games in the industry's history at this point, because of how it has brought all three of the major consoles together. And because I mean, let's face it, right? Justin kind of made the point, and I'll expand on it. I truly believe that one of the reasons that crossplay has kind of taken off the way it has is because of Fortnite. I don't think I don't think that Rocket League. I don't think that Rocket League would have been enough alone on its own to kind of push Sony into this. It's huge.
It's still huge.
It's huge. Yeah. But I don't think Rocket League would have been enough to push Sony over the border of, okay, let's do this. But I think it's Fortnite. I think it's Fortnite that did it.
The other thing with sorry, go ahead.
No. I was like,
Josh,
Rocket League is huge, and then Fortnite's a whole other level. I mean, it's not you said, in our industry, in the game industry with Fortnite. But I mean, Fortnite is huge on a level well above and beyond the game industry at this point. It is. Yes. It's a point that my in-laws, who know jack shit about gaming, will ask me about that Fortnite.
I see it on the video. I see it on the little video screen when I'm filling up my gas tank at the gas station.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking.
I work at a school. I work at the pool, and I see kids doing Fortnite dances hundreds of times a day while waiting for the diving board and stuff.
If my son does one more floss dance,
I'm gonna... That's all our eldest son will do. That's his way of dancing.
That's his only celebration, Amanda. Like he'll do something, something awesome will happen, and he'll just do the floss dance. And I'm like, please, I don't care if you do the sprinkler. Do something other than the floss dance.
We have to have a conversation about cultural appropriation at some point.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
That's what I've told our son. I'm just like, look, we have to have a conversation about cultural appropriation and dancing. He's like, Mom, why? Why are you like this?
One other thing that kind of is both representative of the crossplay thing and just how big Fortnite is this in the past few months, all three consoles have had a Fortnite bundle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As well as a new phone. The Samsung Galaxy had a special Fortnite bundle that had a special skin and V-Bucks. And each console has had a V-Buck Save the World bundle. I would not be surprised if Epic, was including, eventually, if we're going to be marketing the game like this, we want these all to be able to connect. I really want to know, how much Epic did behind the scenes, because I do not think it was an insignificant amount of work.
Joe Kreiner is the guy at Epic who that's. So definitely Epic was working his ass. Joe was working his ass off at Epic, making sure these things happen and they hit, near the same time. And you're right. It's absolutely fascinating that you've got one game that has landed a bundle with every major and its own phone.
It's a free game that gets bundled in with every console.
So I don't know if there's actually a through line with this, but maybe part of me just keeps trying to force it. When Fortnite finally came to Android, the big thing that made a lot of news was that they weren't going to use the Google Play Store. And I think rightfully a lot of people were like, well, is it because they don't want to give 30% up to a storefront? Because I mean, which is understandable. So, like, it's an understandable conclusion, but they also been like letting. Yeah, but then like part of me wonders, like, I wonder if that's part of the infrastructure was like if. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to shoehorn in a separate Fortnite topic into like part of this deal. I don't know. It's just I don't know. I guess I don't have a point.
The whole storefront thing. Epic was smart about it though, because you look at what they did a week and a half to 2 weeks before they made that announcement. They cut their own revenue percentage down to 12% from 30%
right.
on the Unreal Store. So they're able to turn around and have the say, what have you done for me lately that has earned you 30%? And I will tell you this, there are developers having that same conversation about Steam, about the Microsoft Store, and about the PlayStation Store. What are you doing for me that's actually earning you 30%? And I will tell you, with Microsoft and Sony, it's a little bit easier of a conversation. With Steam, they're like, I'm off the front page in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
What are you doing to earn 30% of my money?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So bouncing off of that, I have one more question about crossplay between all 3 consoles and PC, and then we'll move on to Telltale. This is a question for the group, and I'm asking because I legitimately don't know, because I'm dumb on stuff like this, just like I'm dumb on quite a bit.
You're not dumb. Stop it. No self-deprecating talk.
Don't give him self-esteem. That's not good for any of us.
There's no, trust me. When you start pumping me full of self-esteem, it's these guys who suffer. They could attest to that. So here's my question for the group. When it comes to crossplay and like, what is the benefit for developers and publishers like Treyarch? I'm just throwing out examples: Treyarch or Bethesda or Square Enix. Any kind of multiplayer focused game. What is the actual benefit for these companies? Publishers, developers. Because I don't see it increasing game sales. I think it's great for players, but what is the actual benefit for the devs themselves?
So I'll just take a first stab, and then everybody else can stab after.
Please.
My first stab is that, especially for games as a service, this strong move. I mentioned this in our private DM the other day, but like if there's a game like Battlefield is a good example. Let's say there's 2,000 players on Xbox and 8,000 on PS4. When you have crossplay, you now have 10,000 concurrent players. That means more full servers. That means that live service has more people running around. You're not finding servers that are half full. In theory, it just looks like greater engagement to you. And when there's greater engagement, you have more people interacting with your game on a daily basis, probably buying your microtransactions and other sort of expansions, that sort of thing. That's my biggest guess is why they'd want to do it.
And piggybacking off of that same point, because that was exactly what I was going to say, but like, some games, even if they are doing all right online and have like a decent population, they can kind of get a reputation for being dead if people are just looking at like concurrent player lists. Mm-hmm. But like if you have one unit, like or like dead on certain platforms, I know like a lot of stuff on PC, especially like AAA shooters on PC, kind of get a reputation for being kind of dead, even if they have an okay population. And so that might discourage people from buying that game down the line. Whereas if, one unifying player base, they could just, be like, oh, hey, yeah, it's a pretty lively community. You can grab it. It's on sale. Jump in.
Yeah.
Derek, what about you, man? Why don't you jump in here?
So I'm one of those kind of people who I don't generally play a lot of like the big online shooters. And a big part of that is because I'm not going to be able to play with all of my friends. I mean, part of it is because I only have so much time to dedicate to 10 billion different games, it feels like. But, when it comes to something like Battlefield, I'd be a lot more inclined to grab it and jump on and play if I knew that I could form a squad with any of my friends who play Battlefield without having to divvy up. Okay, well, I play on PC. These guys play on Xbox. These guys play on PlayStation. It wouldn't get me into playing like all of these online shooters, but the thing is, it would get me into one or two of them. And I think that there are a lot of people who I don't want to do quick play. I don't want to play with randos online. I want to play.
That's called the bad place.
Yeah, exactly.
On brand for tonight.
I want to play with my friends. So what crossplay effectively does is it gives me the ability to play with my friends. But at the same time, like from a very cynical business perspective, as was brought up earlier, you give people crossplay. They don't have to pay your people who are desperately engaged with your franchise are not going to be buying 2-3 different copies of this game anymore.
Yeah.
And the same thing comes if you do like cross progression. You know, if something like Battlefield or Destiny allows you to carry your unlocks and everything between systems, and what that tells them is, okay, well, now more than likely there's a good chance that they have to let you take like your expansion content that you bought is tied to your Activision Blizzard account or whatever, and then you're not buying it 2-3 separate times to play Destiny 2 with all the expansions. You know, with all
Zach's
the
like,
different-
hallelujah. Like,
You're not spending $180 on Rainbow Siege.
Yeah, and that's really good for us, but like, let's be real, a business is going to see that and they're going to recognize immediately that they're cutting off
Yeah,
money. So
Yves is like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
what they're gonna have
are
they're
you
gonna have
getting
to-
more of me than you're losing of like your whales who will buy 2 or 3 copies of the game?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the big question for like the major AAA publishers is, will it change people from that would buy a game on multiple and play it on multiple platforms? Will they spend, you know, an equivalent amount of money like on cosmetics and microtransactions and expansions for that game if they're not having to pay for multiple copies versus you know, the money they would make from selling multiple copies?
So okay, so just to jump in here, the two business writers are like, we're itching to.
you know, let's hear it.
Yeah,
Let's
of
hear it.
course.
Let's hear it.
I'm so sorry.
We're so
Yeah.
excited. We're so excited. I can just see it in his face. He's like, I have things to say. Okay, so the games as a service, you know, argument is valid, but I think that we also need to look back at, you know, what was leading the charge in games as a service, which was MMOs, right?
Sure.
And if we look at you specifically brought up Square Enix. Square Enix has been doing this with Final Fantasy 14. It's crossplay.
And 11.
And 11, yeah, it's true. 11 was like that as well, where you could play between the PlayStation and.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
that's so cute.
I'll learn
That's
to thing.
Buy a hard drive. Like, Final Fantasy 11 came in a
It-
drive. It had a giant manual.
It was weird. I didn't
remember
play
that.
it on the PlayStation 2. I played it on PC. But yeah, no, he's crazy. So I mean, like they spearheaded this. These were the titles that really paved the way for crossplay between consoles. And what Final Fantasy 14 specifically is doing between PlayStation and PC, I mean, there's no difference. There's no difference between playing with somebody who's playing on a PC versus playing on a PlayStation. And it was the same kind of thing during Final Fantasy 11. But
Hasn't
God, that was so
Square-
many years ago?
Hasn't Square also said that the reason there hasn't been ports of 14 to like Xbox and stuff is because they have unified servers and haven't been able to do crossplay? Like, hasn't that like policy actually prevented it from releasing on Xbox?
So weird thing. Final Fantasy 11 eventually. Xbox 360.
It
Yeah.
did.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of weird rights
Was
stuff
it
with
that
Sony and Final
crossplay?
Fantasy anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I think that Xbox 360 had its own separate shard. I think they had their own separate shards.
It was something like that, yeah.
I believe so, yeah. So, I mean, if we come back to games as a service, if we are looking at the benefit to the developers, because honestly, it's not the developers at this point, it's the publisher. The publishers are the ones that are going to be shelling out the kind of cash for cross-play at this point. If we're looking at games as a service for games like Call of Duty and Battlefield, and to a lesser extent, Fallout 76, you know, the incentive isn't there. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, I think what we're going to start seeing is on the back of the. We're going to start seeing checkboxes for cross progression,
Yep.
Yeah,
cross
exactly.
purchase,
Yeah.
and cross play.
I
Yeah.
think that cross play is going to be something that we'll see more and more of as we see the death of the console wars and the rise of the service wars.
Ooh.
Yeah, there you go.
Service war.
Oh,
like it.
we already wrote about this on Game.biz. You can go there anytime because Mr. James Brightman actually wrote about the cloud service wars already. He wrote
Hell
about that
yeah.
during E3. That's what we're going to start seeing more of is services are going to start vying for our attention, things like Xbox Game Pass and everything like that. But regardless, because consoles are now ubiquitous and everybody's got at least one of them, And it doesn't matter which one you have a lot of the time these days because everything's HD and everything's really beautiful. We're going to see a lot of the cross-play. I don't think that we're going to see cross-progression, and we are probably not going outside of Fortnite. We are likely not going to be seeing shared in-game purchases between.
Interesting.
Really?
Minecraft is shared. Yeah, all my stuff.
Oh, but it's all in one account though.
Right.
Right. It's all in the your
but
Microsoft
still, all your
account.
stuff is in one account. It's in
Exactly.
your Epic account. So,
But we're not necessarily going to see that with something like COD blocks.
No, you might not, but there is an advantage from a data gathering perspective to funnel people into an account. There's also a community management reason why you'd want to funnel people into a single account because you ban them once. Banning has such a more powerful impact. If you ban somebody's account across multiple platforms,
Well, that's what Ubisoft's doing now.
yeah, that's what Ubisoft is doing now. But here's the thing. I think we're going to see this on a publisher. But as a consumer, I would be satisfied with cross progression.
Yep.
And cross transaction, cross purchase, like in-game purchase, even if there's not cross play. I think some games like Fortnite
agree.
don't really benefit from cross play. But as a consumer, it's like I don't care if I have to. If I have friends who are playing a game and I played all on PlayStation 4 and I have a group of friends on Xbox and a game goes on sale for $20, I'm like, I get to just carry everything over. I have a new group of friends. That's enough of that's a selling point for me down the road. But again, like Amanda said, if we
But
start
that's
seeing,
not necessarily.
no, it's not necessarily going to happen. It's going to be a publisher by publisher, game by game call, and publishers and
Because
developers.
Destiny's never going to do.
No.
That's
Which is unfortunate because I think Destiny would be a great one to benefit from cross progression.
You've got I mean, you've got
It would be really
you've
nice.
already
It
got
would have
Justin
to be playing
quivering in
Destiny.
his seat.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is we're going to start seeing the conversation shift with every new play paradigm that comes around. You have developers and publishers having to relearn how to communicate to the public why they've made decisions, not just the decisions they've made, but the reasoning behind.
Yeah.
So
which is why we exist sometimes.
So this is
gonna be interesting.
This is mostly for Mike and Amanda because they're our experts, but whoever can answer it. Do you think that we will see the pressure that we've seen on Sony over the last year? You think people will on a game by game or publisher by publisher basis start taking that same pressure and putting it on publishers of those big games?
No.
Okay.
No,
Like, you think people wouldn't be asking? Sorry.
The only reason why we're seeing this with Fortnite is because it's a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with putting the pressure on the publisher, or putting the pressure on the platform.
Yeah.
Because it's a cultural phenomenon, and because they're missing out on, they're likely starting to see a decline in Fortnite players on their system, which means they are missing out on that 30% platform cut, which hurts. They are making millions. Epic is printing money.
Mm-hmm.
Money.
I think that we really need to look at what the pressure was here. The pressure very specifically in this case was I can play with my friends everywhere except PS4.
Right.
So why would I play it on PS4?
That was a very specific pressure that Sony was under. Now, here's what I started playing Fortnite. And then I picked it up on my Switch, and I'm like, and I'm this close to buying a Battle Pass twice. Well, which platform do I buy it on? And then I just stopped. I didn't buy it. So from Epic's perspective, they can show Sony, look how many people created alt accounts. How many people have told us they've created alt accounts because you guys aren't doing this. So Sony's like, well, crap, that means people are probably moving over. Wherever you buy your V-Bucks, that's the storefront that's getting the 30%. Unless there's some kind of negotiated deal that's all behind the scenes stuff.
Or it's Android, in which case Epic's like
100%.
Yeah.
We're not giving you shit.
Yeah.
So
PC also, all PC purchase.
I think what we will see is a spike around multiplayer games where players ask the question.
Yeah.
And my hope is that we're never going to get to the point with like the Modern Warfare 2 thing where it was dedicated servers or boycott, and then you had all those people on day one. Anyway. I hope we don't get to the point where we start seeing players harass developers and publishers to make games.
Oh, yeah.
That's not how this
That sucks. Yeah.
But it's not a natural fit for the game.
No.
Or reasons why they don't want to do it. I think we have to respect that this is an option
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a great option, and it's something that's probably going to be there moving forward, but it's not going to happen with every game.
And I think
It's
we can
not-
all,
you're not-
and in today's environment, Mike, I think we can all agree that people will be absolutely fucking shitty about it.
Oh,
Oh,
they're gonna be
100%.
Always.
People will be.
the sense of entitlement will be insane.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah,
it's
they're-
gonna be
yeah. People are gonna be like,
Gamers
lazy
rise
devs
again.
won't. Yeah, lazy
What?
devs won't put in crossplay.
Can't
Yeah.
Why
believe-
can't you just
Oh
flip
my
the
God, I
crossplay
have
switch?
muted-
The switch,
I
yeah,
have
flip the
muted on
switch.
Twitter lazy devs. Lazy
Good.
Don't worry,
devs.
guys.
Yeah.
Gamers are going to
Like,
find a
muted
woman
on
at every
Twitter.
company who's responsible.
Yeah, probably.
I don't fucking doubt it at all, man. I don't doubt it at all. Let's.
I'd like you to look in my face right now.
I know. Yeah. No.
Nah.
but Amanda feels
I'm not
that pain.
saying that's the case. I'm just saying, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I'm not Nostradamus.
yeah.
But also, please consider this apocalypse.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move the conversation over to our final topic, which is Telltale.
Before
All
we
right.
do that, Justin's gonna head out, right?
Yeah, I got to get going. I've been here probably a bit longer.
Yeah,
than
it
I
is
should
10
have,
o'clock. You got to get rolling, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
good
Later,
one.
buddy.
Yeah, have a great
Nice
night,
to
buddy.
meet you.
Later.
Okay.
And then the
So
Windows shift.
so
Looks so different.
Telltale Games.
Green.
I'll just give a I'll just give a brief overview of what happened.
You want to talk
So-
about shocking announcements?
Yeah, holy
Yeah.
shit. So and especially after the release of season 1 of the final or episode 1 of this
Oh, the
final
big
season
one.
of The Walking Dead. So the news came out. It was just a little less than a week ago now. That Telltale was shutting its doors, and there was a lot of when this news broke, it was really murky at first, right? Like nobody really knew what was happening. Some people were saying there was a
There was
massive layoff.
lots of wait, what?
There was some not so great.
In
Flushed
fact,
out the gate.
in fact, you know what? I'm gonna let Mike lead the conversation because Mike has been following this very closely. He's written some really good stuff.
Not just me.
What
No,
what
it-
Amanda's
I was the one that assigned him to the story.
okay.
So when the news broke and I saw one of my friends, so someone that I was on a panel with at PAX, announcing that she lost her job, I was like, what? And then I went and I talked to her in DM and I said, okay, now I got to put my journalist hat on. Can you talk to me on the record? Can you be a source for this story? And then, because this was, okay, so just to lay this down, Mike and I were parked in line to go pick our kids up at school. And we're starting to frame out this story in the car as we're waiting for our children.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone
Jesus
does.
Christ.
So what we knew immediately, as soon as this hit, before there was any other news out there, we knew immediately two things: 250 employees, approximately, no severance.
No severance. That was the first thing that my source told me, was that there was no severance offered,
Yeah.
and that they had 30 minutes to pack up their stuff and get out.
Jesus,
Good God.
So awful.
What happened after that was
get the
enough
fuck
people
out.
saw this person in particular who has become kind of a central voice in the story since this happened about less than a week ago.
Really hasn't only.
It was
Yeah.
Friday.
Welcome to
Friday.
2018.
Yeah.
And
this
Capcom
year
was
started
really
a
that-
decade.
Yeah, and Capcom Vancouver, which is my city,
Yeah.
that they closed down 3
days
Yeah.
before.
So we were like, all right, we're gonna take it slow.
And we
'cause
did.
We had one source at the time. I emailed Telltale, got no response. We're looking around. We're getting a sense that this is happening. But in the meantime, here's what happened. There were stories that hit that the studio was absolutely shutting down. There was a story that hit that the studio had gone bankrupt, which immediately triggered me to go to PACER, which is the federal repository. It's split up by districts, but it's the repository for every filing that happens at the federal level. There's an appellate court list, and then there's a bankruptcy court list. So I searched Northern California District for bankruptcy.
That's where we find all of our lawsuit information.
Yep. Every time you see a lawsuit put in scribed at the at the bottom of Polygon,
And Game Daily Biz stories. Because I did that with the
Stories on Game Informer.
Bethesda's.
So that's where those documents.
Yeah.
You need to have an account. You need to know how to use it. It's not the most intuitive system. But I went and I looked for bankruptcies. There's no bankruptcy. So immediately we're starting to see a lot of muddying of the waters
Yeah.
when the story's coming out. But
And that was the result of rushing reporting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's important. Look, there's being early and being in the pack is important. Absolutely being right and making sure that you've got your facts, you're double sourcing, where you have to. I mean, unless you got a massive primary source or an official statement. So what ended up happening was and then I spent a lot of time over the weekend answering my DMs are open. A lot of fans DMing me, a lot of fans my mentions, because we ran our story. We were not first. We knew we weren't going to be first. We wanted to make sure we were absolutely right. And
we still ran, I think, 3 or 4 updates that day?
Yeah. And what happened was Telltale puts out the statement on Twitter, and Pete Hawley, who's the CEO, put out a statement on Twitter that said they were beginning what they called a majority studio closure. So we updated our headline from laid off 50 people to the studio was shutting.
Yes.
Because majority studio closure read to us as,
okay, they're closing.
They're closing.
They're just doing it slowly.
Yeah, they're just not doing it. They've begun a process of.
Exactly. That's how we interpreted it.
I tweeted this out. Pete Hawley, within minutes.
It was probably 10 minutes.
Yeah. He responds to my tweet and said, "Hey, just want to clear something up. I know it's strange. We're not actually shutting down. The 25 people who are left are going to continue foreseeable," was the word that he used. So we updated our story again, issued the correction, because we wanted to make sure we didn't have any erroneous information out there that the studio was shutting down. We knew the studio wasn't going bankrupt. That had been absolutely refuted at that point, in addition to the fact that there was no filing. And then what was interesting was because Pete responded to me directly, my mentions started filling up with fans, some of them angry at Pete because of everything that happened. And your own opinions about how leadership handled that are yours. The lack of severance is certainly an issue.
Not even just lack of severance, lack of a final.
So there was a lot of muddiness and clutter, and that's kind of where the story sat for the weekend.
It wasn't until we got back at our desk, or I got back to my desk on Monday. It must have been Monday morning.
I guess it was Sunday night. Sunday night or Monday night.
Sunday night that you were drafting something. You were drafting an update to the story about the Warn Act.
Oh no, it was Monday night because. About cutting through the noise.
Right.
Like,
so we did
absolutely.
We did an update. We did a brand new story on Monday morning, and Mike was good enough to pull that together relatively quickly, giving a rundown of everything that we knew about the Telltale financial, legal, studio woes as we know it, based on official record and based on what we have been told on record by our source.
Yeah, and there were 2 big pieces, mostly. One was about licensing.
Yeah, because people kept going into Mike's mentions and they're just like, well, the publisher, and it's just like, or the licensor, and we're like, no, guys, licensing doesn't work like that.
Yeah. So just a quick explainer, real quick. If you don't know how licensing works, there's something called a minimum guarantee. So if you're making a Walking Dead game, you are paying Skybound a certain amount of money up front before you even start development. Once the contract is signed. And that says, we expect we're going to get X number of sales. This is your royalty payment in advance.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they get that no matter what. And you don't start paying Skybound in this case again until they've earned royalties more.
Sure.
The other thing is the concept of unearned revenue. This is an episodic game. So the reason why season passes are a thing is because you get people who are buying when the fever's hot at launch. You get the people to buy all this content in advance, even though a lot of the time. But you also get all this cash in the door, right? So you're not supposed to spend that cash. It sits on the balance sheet, liability, revenue, but it sits in your cash account in your profit and loss statement.
Okay.
So you show that you've got the cash, but technically you're really not supposed to spend that until you deliver content. So it's a company by company basis how they choose to recognize. My guess is that Telltale chooses to recognize it at the quarter where they release an episode. So there's 4 episodes. There were supposed to be 4 episodes in The Walking Dead.
Yep.
So you pre-sell the game. It's all unearned revenue.
Which means it needs to be earmarked.
Yep. It's supposed to be anyway. If you release the first episode, you get to recognize that quarter of that revenue that you've earned at that point.
Yeah.
Right. That goes into your asset, cash asset.
Okay, Mike, you're starting to lose people here, buddy.
No, I'm riveted. Like I'm.
Anyway, so there was a question about whether refunds were going to happen. Obviously, if the company does go bankrupt, there's no refund.
There's no refunds. That's gone.
But the company, like Pete very specifically said, the company is closing, which means there's no bankruptcy, which means they still have a duty to the customer.
And on top of that, the WARN Act.
Yes. So do you want to talk about the WARN Act?
Well, I don't know much about the WARN Act myself because I am an anxious Canadian in America. So I don't know too much about American law. But what I can tell you is the way that we handled the story, and Mike can go into detail. So later that night, after we had published the story, Mike was getting ready to draft an update to it about the WARN Act. And he was getting statements from 2 lawyers that we know. We know a lot of lawyers in this industry. We are constantly asking lawyers questions because, quite frankly, I don't know anything about the law. I need smart people to tell me things. So he was drafting this just as an update, and then it started to become more of an explainer. So we drafted it as its own full story that went into an explainer that quoted Richard and Brandon Huffman, and it was an important piece that a lot of people were missing. And the interesting part of this is that we published it. How many hours? Like, it was 5 hours.
3 hours.
No, it was 5 hours
5
before
hours?
because I published it at 9 a.m.
Okay.
And then I think it was at 2.
Yeah,
we ended up getting information that said Polygon ran this story with their own smaller explainer. It was still good because it's Submit, and Submit's great. But they were the ones that broke the news that an employee had filed a class action lawsuit based on the WARN Act, when hours before we were talking about, like, hey, this might be a problem. It's not a problem necessarily on the federal level, but it might be a big fucking problem on a state level. So
Yeah.
Mike can talk more about the WARN Act himself, because I'm just going to be an anxious Canadian.
The short version is that a lot of times you'll have states that adopt versions of laws and make them more stringent. And this is the
California,
case. California,
absolutely.
So this is the case with the WARN Act, where on the federal level, if you have a mass layoff or a plant closure for unforeseen reasons, and you were trying to bring money in, and you're trying to bring money in to avoid the layoff, and you didn't you have to let people know. Usually, you have to let people know 60 days.
60 days.
I was gonna say, yeah. There's
But if you're
there's like a grace period.
Right. So, by the way, Europe and Canada handle this way better because there's.
We don't do at will.
You're telling me that our
That's on
labor
any
system is
subject.
outdated?
You're good.
So remember how I said I was an anxious Canadian in America? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what ends up happening is that, at the federal level, if you're trying to raise money, you don't have to let people know about a layoff because that might adversely affect your ability to raise money.
That's right.
So they're probably safe on the level
Because they
according to
were
Richard.
trying to raise capital, and they were trying to get investors. And part of the reason why everything fell apart as quickly as it did is because they lost investment the day before.
Yeah.
Big investment.
And that was
I
a
think
big
it was
variety
40.
story.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Brian Crescente. He was he was in the trenches with us.
I saw
we
him
work for
tweeting about a lot of this.
Separate
Yeah.
outlets. I mean, Mike has an awesome column on Variety these days, and he still does some great freelancing with Brian. But we were in the trenches together. We were the ones that were right in there doing this investigative reporting, and Crescente crushed it.
Yeah.
He had this great story where he talked about, I think it was Lionsgate, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was sort of a Lionsgate, but then they were looking from AMC.
From AMC and
Smilegate
Smilegate
in Korea.
in Korea, and this is tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
that they're trying to raise, and it was still irresponsible financial stewardship, because if they were allowing their accounts to become that muddled and that drained of liquid capital, I mean,
Well, I think
one of the things that's
No, Mike,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, Mike, please.
I just one thing I want to say, to spring a word off what Amanda said was, one of the things that's in the stories is that they got paid with paper checks. And if you've ever been through an issue with a company closing or about to close or running into major issues, these companies have payroll services, and your payroll service will float you for a couple of days, and they'll do that maybe 2 before they say you are no longer going to issue direct deposit checks for you.
mhm.
And they have to come right out of your account, because the way direct deposits work is you have an account that's specifically for payroll. It gets taken out a couple of days before by the
Right.
payroll company.
Yeah.
I mean, the payroll company in their account and then issues it to your
Yeah.
right. If you don't have the money in your account, if you're company says we're gonna float you for a couple days. After a couple
And-
times, they're not going to do that, and that's why you have a situation where people are being issued paper checks.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were definitely scraping the barrel in terms of their cash flow.
Which surprises me, because I was under the impression, and I think a lot of people were under the impression, that Telltale was thriving, that they were doing very well.
Too big, too fast.
Yep.
Genuinely, too big, too fast, and taking on way too many projects. It became a churn factory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what the designers and developers, even some of the support staff, have come out saying is that they were cogs in a machine. They were told that it needed to be of the highest quality, that they could be replaced at any time.
Oh yeah,
that
I've been there.
you know, they were expected to work these long crunch hours for God knows how long. And it created this really toxic environment. And if you haven't read Megan's story over at The Verge about the Telltale expose, it was an incredible expose that Megan wrote. I think it was back in March of this year, that started to outline a lot of the issues that the studio had, based on a number of internal accounts of both the people that were currently working there and people that had recently departed. This is a long-standing problem. This is not something that happened overnight. This poor financial stewardship is the result of a studio that grew too big, that was running on older technology and micro piece over on Variety about, you know, what they were going to be doing to help mitigate some of that with the final season of The Walking Dead and moving forward into Stranger Things. But it was too little too late.
Well, I mean,
and
weren't
250 people lost their jobs like that.
Like fucking nothing. And weren't they about to start running their games on a new engine too?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
The Walking Dead, the final season is a Unity game.
Yeah. Okay.
As
Right.
far
Right.
as I
Yeah.
No.
It isn't?
It's the last
No.
one. It's Telltale.
Yeah, it's the last one.
Okay.
But I don't know if you guys saw it, but last night, a couple of GIFs were leaked of of Stranger Things.
I
of,
saw
like,
that.
of, like,
yeah.
work in
Yeah,
progress,
that's
and it looked interesting. But like what you're talking about, were too big, too fast, and like how much they were just counting on these big deals to save them. Like I just pulled up my inbox, and like from Telltale Publishing a week ago today, I had something about that Stranded Deep indie game they were going to be publishing. Like they were 100% banking. I mean, so the day that they lost that huge investment, they were still expecting to be publishing these games. Yeah, it's just.
Well,
and the reason why Telltale Publishing, unless I'm mistaken, they've only published one game, and that was 7 Days to Die.
Oh, right, that was 7 Days to Die. Yeah,
Yep.
Oh, they
And
did do
that
7 days today, didn't they?
it did. Yeah,
Holy
it was.
shit,
That was a
I didn't even
moneymaker
think
for
about
them.
that. So like, you know, like Julian in chat makes a good point. He said they fooled me into thinking they were doing just fine. That's exactly what happened to me because Amanda all that output. You know, when you got The Walking Dead, you got Batman, you got Game of Thrones, you got Borderlands, Minecraft Story Mode, all these franchises being Guardians of the Galaxy, all these franchises being launched had led me to think, you know, like, wow, they must be raking in the cash with all this. Like they're looping in, because these are especially franchises like Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, that could not have been cheap to acquire, to buy the rights for a game to a major MCU property.
I had the exact opposite thought. I was a fan of Telltale games back when they started out doing Sam and Max stuff, and when they started pumping out more games, we've had a topic on our podcast every year or so, I guess at this point, where it's talking about the Telltale formula essentially, and how it was just like, how are they pumping? It went from, oh, they're putting out like a couple seasons a year. Oh, they're putting out like 4 seasons things a year. Oh, they're announcing like 5 seasons here and doing 5 seasons this year, and they're all literally the same game with a different skin. And like, we start talking like, are they like, what's going on here? Like, are these just quick churned out things that are actually profitable, or is this just literally they are just desperately crabbing at every property trying to keep their business going?
Yeah,
that, and that's part of what, and that honestly, that's what a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
The last truly great Telltale game that I played was
Borderlands.
I didn't play Borderlands.
Amanda, it's so good.
Yeah, boy, did you miss out.
That is a
Whoa.
property almost nothing to me. So
same.
You don't have to like Borderlands. Nope, you don't have to like Borderlands.
Well,
I don't like Borderlands.
which one, Amanda?
Which
Sorry.
one?
So it was The Wolf Among Us. That was
Yep.
the last truly great Telltale game that I played. I really enjoyed Game of Thrones. that it had a lot of interesting story beats. But again, because it became so formulaic,
Yeah.
it wasn't the writer's fault. It wasn't the
Yeah.
narrative designer's fault. It came from the top. And the
Yeah.
top was, you do this because it worked once. Do you
Right.
know why it worked once? Because of Jake Rodkin and Sean Vanneman in the very first season of The Walking Dead. It worked because these are two incredible directors and designers that went on to go and produce Firewatch at Campo Santo.
Yeah.
And they left. They left after season 1, and they left with a good reason. It was
Yeah.
not an environment that they could create in any.
But I will also go so
Right.
far as to say that The Walking Dead innovated and brought
It
back
did.
the idea of
Adventure
playing
games.
Yeah, it brought back
Mhm.
adventure games.
Yeah.
But then everybody started doing it, and when you've got games like Life is Strange
Yeah.
come out that
Yeah.
take that formula and do something bigger with it.
And, you know, gut punch you a few times.
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way
God.
that
Yep.
speaks
Oh.
to
Right.
me as a former teenage girl.
End of season
Yeah.
3 or episode 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
A lot. It was a lot.
I cried
That
ugly.
whole series is so much. I'm playing Life is Strange 2 episode 1 right now, and I'm like, it's already so much.
And that one punches you right in the face.
Well, you know, speaking of a gut punch, how about that tweet from Telltale the other day when they said, you know, hey, we got an interested party who's good. They're going to help us get The Walking Dead, you know, final season out. It's going to be great. And I'm like,
How about pay your employees?
Priorities.
Yeah.
that?
Priorities.
And like
Yeah.
I think
Infuriating.
like that's infuriating, but like what felt more fucked to me was like the number of people who were like, hell yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get the rest of my
Yeah.
games.
That was
Yeah,
my
like-
worry
So
part.
it wasn't even the
Yeah.
fans that it wasn't
No, yeah.
either. And like the interesting thing is that I saw former Telltale staff were saying, "Great, this is amazing," and it's like, how long you been gone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check it
like,
out. What
Yeah.
you doing?
Yeah.
You in that sunken place?
My-
Look, they all want this game to come out. They want these last episodes to come out, but they want to be the ones that A, get paid for it, B,
Yeah.
make, and do it in an ethical manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. I actually deleted the tweet because a developer friend of got really upset because my response to this was good. And my thought was, okay, well, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna bring back all these people. Yeah, it might be in a, but you're gonna bring them back, and you're gonna pay them, and it's gonna be ethical. And this
No.
makes no sense. What am I doing?
No,
Yeah.
it
No, of
doesn't.
course that's not what's.
Because this is the way the culture's been since the end of the first season of The Walking Dead. Is they have been exploiting
Yep.
developers and designers and writers and sound engineers and their support staff because they're like, no, this is the Telltale mission and quality's in our blood. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's like going back to what Josh was saying, where like, how are they churning it out so fast? It's like, oh yeah, just exploiting the shit out of all of their labor forces. Like, I think one of the big things, and I think it's in the article
most
that
expensive region in the United States.
And people had
There are
just
people
moved there.
exactly, they just created with
Yep.
families. And
Hmm.
you know, there's at least one Canadian expat that is now like, okay, I guess I can't stay in the United States and I have to quickly move back to Canada.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not easy. Moving
No.
to a new country, speaking from experience, is
Yeah.
not easy.
Yeah, and like I don't mean to be dramatic about it, but like California's a really fucking expensive place to live.
Yes.
There are undoubtedly people, as a result of both cost of living and like student loans and that sort of thing. I'm sure there are people who will lose property, who will lose whether it's a car. Like there are people who lose things
Lose
from
their
this bad
homes.
decision.
People will lose their
What,
homes over
what
this.
really frustrates me is I saw what was, and I know it was intended to be like a good feel, like motivational tweet, and it was talking about, oh, here's this expo, this job fair, and all these people from Telltale are there and getting hired, and it's people are seeking out the people from Telltale, and it's so good, and I know that that's supposed to feel good, but when I see that, what I see is these people shouldn't have to be in this position in the first place. They should be getting their severance pay. They should be getting, like actual notice. They should be getting their benefits. But then also B, all you're doing is roping these people back into the same industry that fucked them in the first place. Because I know that Telltale is the hot moment now, but there's no labor protection or regulation across the gaming
1,000
industry.
jobs.
And these
Yeah.
people
1,000 jobs in a
people
year.
get chewed up and spit out and never come back to this industry on a yearly basis. So all these people have done is they've found the next abuser in line, basically.
Well, I mean, honestly,
that's not a feel-good moment
Well,
to me.
no, I mean, and you're right. And like the thing is, we just spent a half hour talking about Telltale, and we haven't talked about the 170 people who lost their job in Vancouver.
Yeah,
like because they got overshadowed, and that sucks. But
or the how many was it?
75,
Big Fish
I think.
game?
Yeah, that was
Or
Carbide.
the 50 at
Carbide.
or the 200 last year, Gazillion. And by the way, the people who were at Gazillion before they finally admitted that Marvel's like, that's it, we're pulling the license early and the game's getting early. The 200 people at Gazillion, they were furloughed. Were you guys in the workforce in 2008?
nope.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was.
Well, I mean, I'm Canadian, so
Okay.
the recession
Yeah, you
didn't
didn't-
hit.
I've been furloughed
I'm
before,
a
Mike.
baby.
Okay, so John's been furloughed. So for those of you who don't know what a furlough is, they tell you not to come into work. And they say this is going to happen. We think this is going to happen 3 more times. And you don't get paid for it.
Yep.
And it's a way for them to keep their staff and not lay people off, but they have to reduce their payroll somehow. So what happens is you lose a week of pay.
Yeah.
And it happens as too when everything crashed in 2008, furloughs were common.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary because you never knew when it was going to hit. Budget for having a set amount of revenue, and it's just
Even scarier when you have children.
Yep.
Sure.
So we're talking about from Gazillion all the way through, Big Fish Games, 1,000 jobs, and some of those people, at least at Gazillion, back in the end of 2017, they were furloughed before they were.
Yeah.
laid
And
off
how
or
many
closed,
times in
or-
this industry where we've seen this happen over and over? Talk about 38 for crying out
Well,
loud.
we can talk about 38. We can talk about Volition was in there. I mean,
Volition-
not Volition had layoffs in there.
Volition had layoffs, but Volition did not mistreat their.
No, we had Visceral closed. You've got and then
That visceral closure was such garbage when that happened.
what was
Yeah.
the- all
No
right, so
kidding.
there were studios after studio.
And it happens every year.
I mean, let's talk about
especially
Crytek.
around this.
Do you guys
Oh, God,
remember
yeah.
what happened with Crytek when they were working on homes?
Yep.
I mean,
Mhm.
this is a constant churn. I am a big proponent of DLC and games as a service
Absolutely.
from a business perspective because it keeps people.
Keeps that money
There's
flowing
always
in.
more
Makes
stuff to
that
work
money.
on. You don't run into that. Hey, our game went gold. 2 weeks later, we laid off half the
Yeah.
pre-production now for the next.
And
game.
the best thing about games as a service from a business perspective is that it doesn't just make a little bit of money; it makes a shit ton
Shitload.
of money.
Yep.
So much money, and Ubisoft has perfected that formula
They really.
of okay, we released a game. It's not
It's
really
good.
doing that good, but that's cool. So we're gonna inject some life into it, and we're gonna really turn it into a game as a service. And check it out. Not only do we have a thriving community, but we have so much money coming. Rainbow Six Siege is probably the best example of it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably followed by
Wildlands.
Ghost Recon Wildlands and The Division.
Yeah.
Those are really, and For Honor, which is still a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at For Honor and Siege's launch reception, both critically and from a commercial audience, it was
no,
terrible.
It was just,
Mediocre
Yeah.
receptions.
yeah, exactly. Ubisoft's got it figured out.
So the reason why we are starting, this is my opinion. This is not based on analysis and necessarily reality, but this is how I feel about the industry. We have all of this pushback from the average gamer that doesn't understand how this industry works, that doesn't necessarily recognize that there are developers that are behind these games, not just developers, designers, enormous staff that are putting these games together, and they're like, "Oh, I hate games. I would never support this." I wrote about Remedy's upcoming game
Yeah.
and how they're potentially venturing into being a game as a service. And so many people were up in my face about this. They're like, "Okay, I'll never buy it." It's like, do you not understand how business works? And you want
No.
more from Remedy? You want more? You're probably not going to get Alan Wake 2. I mean, yeah, I'm sad about that too. And also, I dream about Alan Wake 2 at least once a year.
Yeah.
Point being, if you want more from the studios that you love, you gotta fucking invest in them because
Yeah.
$60 for a game is not enough. This
Well-
is hundreds of millions of dollars put into these games.
Yeah.
I think just a lot of people, the fact is the average consumer, maybe not the average consumer, but the large portion of the vocal average consumer doesn't understand
No.
anything whatsoever about
No.
business, because these are the
They
same.
don't know what the difference between a developer and a publisher is.
No, they have no idea what the difference between a developer and
no,
publisher is.
that is very.
Hang on. Let Josh talk.
Well, but I'm saying they have no idea the difference between these things, or they have no idea what the difference between any of this stuff is. So they just go in like, these are the same people who are like, oh, I'm so mad that Telltale closed down. It's like, oh, did you buy their games? No, I pirated them all. What?
Yeah.
Then why the fuck are you mad about this? If you're,
Yeah.
why are you fucking mad if you pirated this?
Yeah.
It's like it's this idiotic
That's
idea.
infuriating.
Yeah.
Oh no,
If
it's
they stop
infuriating because I'm
making
friends with
games, I
people
can't
who
steal
pulled
their
that
games.
shit.
Yeah.
I'm friends with people
Yeah.
who I was friends with people.
And
who
then they're
pulled
more
that shit.
mad that they're not getting their games than they are about all
Yeah.
the people whose jobs
Yeah,
got
it's
lost.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I shelled out $20 for this
Yeah.
game, and I'm not going to get the episodes. 250 people lost their jobs. Yeah, they'll get more jobs. I mean, there's always more
somebody
jobs.
like, look, they're gonna get new jobs. I just want my game. I'm not getting my hard-earned money back.
Well,
Yeah.
it's because
Wrong with
people outside of this industry, their understanding of game development comes from those Collins College game development, commercials.
you.
Where they're like, "Hey guys,
Tighten up the
they're like,
graphics.
guys, are you done designing that game yet? I have another one that needs to be designed. Oh yeah, we're just tightening up the graphics in level 3." And then they look at each other and they're like, "Can you believe we get paid to do this?"
The classic,
Like-
dude. That commercial is the classic.
That's the thing about this industry, and we can say that media as well, because Mike and I mean, Mike is still trying to figure out what the heck he wants to do, after Game Informer, but it chews people up, it spits them out, and it banks on their dreams. And when I first started as a writer, as a journalist, it was in 2010. Do you want to know how long it took me to get paid?
How long?
7 years.
Too fucking long.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Years it took me to get paid, to get a real paying job in this industry. That's called #paying your dues, apparently. But that's what this industry does. It does it in the media. It does it with developers, designers, writers, sound engineers, animators, UI, tool sets. It's just you're banking on dreams. And then you know what? When you bank on your dreams and you let and somebody else is pulling the purse strings, you end up out of a job with no severance, with no final paycheck, with 30 minutes to pack your shit up and get the hell out of your dream job.
It's,
And then when you get in your car, you have a text message that calls you lazy, or a
Yeah.
DM that calls you lazy, or a death threat.
Or it says to you, well, you're the reason, because you're a feminist, you're the
Yeah.
reason why game studios are shutting
Yeah.
down. And it's like, have you looked in the mirror lately?
Yep.
I feel like you need a hug. Like,
Yeah.
how many hugs do you need on a scale of 1 to about 1,000,000? How
honestly,
Yeah.
God, for an
I knew
industry
that.
for an industry as thriving as the games industry is right now, it chews people up and spits them out like nothing else I've ever seen.
it does.
We got to go ahead and wrap up because we're about 5-10 minutes over our time. I know we get some questions in chat and I wanted to answer those, but we are brushing against our time limit here. I do want to give shout outs to I saw Anthony Agnello in there, and Anthony's my boy. Rebecca Valentine, another good friend of ours. So we got
Another business writer.
Yeah.
another
businessman.
exactly, yeah, we got that connection. So we got time for two very quick questions, one from Anthony and one from Rebecca. We'll answer Anthony's first real quick. He asked, is going forward as opposed to AAA development, is AA development a viable alternative? I'll just answer and I'll say absolutely fucking yes. I think so. The way some of these smaller, more independent games are selling these days, when you consider the sales and the quality, yeah, I think there's definitely a viable inroad for that as well.
I don't have an answer. Mike or Amanda, do you have anything, or Josh, for that?
No, I mean, I think I think certainly has the potential, as long as they don't get too big too fast.
Yeah.
With that mentality doesn't strike. I think there's certainly the potential.
Okay.
Mike, what about you? Mike and Amanda?
You go first.
No. You go first.
All right.
I think it's a lot of speculation, and I'm
Yeah.
not super.
I mean, that we lost for a long time that $40 price point in video games. We had back when back on the in the Xbox 360, we had your $10, $15, $20 Xbox Live arcade games, and we had your full price $60 titles. Now what we're seeing is price spread. We're seeing a return to the middle for $40, but we're also seeing ways that publishers are innovating, getting money For instance, you can play the game 3 days early with the $100 edition. You know, the gold edition, we're gonna pre-sell you the season pass and the game as a whole bundle. You know, for $100, for $110 now, or whatever it is.
It's 100
So-
or 110.
Yeah. So
I don't know how. I think that Assassin's Creed Odyssey was 110
yeah, something like that.
for 3 days early.
So
Yep.
you know, I think that double A is viable, but I think that you need to be realistic that double A is not the same as triple A.
It's not.
You're not going to get a game like God of War or Spider-Man or Horizon or Forza Horizon 4 at a double A level. You're going to get
But-
great games, but not those games.
Exactly. So the double A, triple I is kind of that's the line for me. So you're getting really, really highbrow indie games. Like what would be a good example of a really great indie game that recently came
The
out?
Messenger.
Like yeah, I mean, The Messengers is fantastic. Like Vampire to me is a double A game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, pretty much.
And-
Am I wrong for saying like pretty much anything that Focus Home touches is probably what I would consider a double A game? In that, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like certain publishers.
Smaller budgets, smaller
Yeah.
marketing budgets. I mean,
and the problem is that like,
solid titles.
yeah, and the problem is that like it's one of those things where of course we want them to that space to get filled out, but like consumers refuse to see the difference between a $20 game and a $60. Like nobody's happy with Focus Home games don't typically review well, and like people are mad about it, but it's like, well, it's a $45 game made on a shoestring budget and it's super fucking ambitious, and yeah, they couldn't pull it off because they didn't get this huge budget, but like I just think that the
Games
audience
are also iterative. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that I'm going to Vampire at the beginning of the month, and I'm going to be talking about the iterative nature of games these days.
Sure.
Because, I mean, back in the day, what did you guys have to do? You had to put a CD in, and then maybe you got a patch at some point, but you had to go to the website and download it, and then maybe it worked.
Fileplanet.com.
You actually had to know the
Fileplanet.com,
patch existed.
or you had to write your own damn patch because you had to edit that. Just pray to God you didn't screw something up.
So
Yeah.
someone said THQ Nordic is there.
yeah.
I'm worried about them THQ again. I'm not. I actually wrote a big thing for Game Daily about why I don't think THQ is
They're not going to make the same
going
mistakes.
to make those same mistakes. I mean, you draw aside.
Yeah, don't make the U-Draw tablet. You're good.
Don't make the U-Draw tablet. You know, I wrote a big thing for Game Daily about why I think that the current leadership at THQ Nordic is taking things very slow. Could they eventually compete with an EA, Activision? Sure, especially with all the stuff they're acquiring right now. But I think they're going to take it slow, and they're not in a rush to get there.
Their war chest is enormous right now, and they're starting to flex their muscles with all of their acquisitions, and not just acquisitions of studios, but acquisitions of IP and former THQ IP. If you guys want to go, you know what, the best thing to do is go read Mike's explainer on GDBiz, because it's really, really good and it's comprehensive as hell.
Mike
So-
Mike also wrote a very good book about this very subject.
Wait, I know this one. Look,
I would
wait, I have it. It's right here.
I have a copy myself. I'm halfway through it. The Game Dev Business Handbook. Mike. And
John, don't lie. You can't read.
I can't. You're right. I'm a Marine. I can't read at all. I wanted to let.
You can go to gamedevbizbook.com and buy your own. You can buy it on Amazon.
I wanted to let.
Also, this is not endorsed by me as a journalist. I am putting my bonus wife hat on right now, and I'm like,
no, by all means, by all means. I wanted to let Derek cut on that real quick because I know he was trying to get in, and then we'll answer Rebecca's question, and then we will cut out of here.
I can go to bed.
I actually don't even remember what I was going to say at this point, so it's
That's
fine.
fine. That's
what
fine.
is questions?
That's
really?
fine, and we'll answer Rebecca's question real quick because I think it's a very important one given the atmosphere throughout the country right now. Just drop one game moment recently that made you smile. Josh, we'll start with you.
Literally anything Spider-Man. I can't name a moment. I would just say literally swinging around New York. So every Spider-Man game, I do the same thing where I try to swing around Lenox Hill area because I try to find the hospital I was born in. Because
That's
I
awesome.
think it was Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 3 literally had the one of the games that actually had like hospitals. They actually had the hospital in the exact right location.
That's nuts.
And-
Resident 2 was one of the things that popped up. Taking injured people to hospitals.
Yes, that was the one. So essentially, I remember once taking an injured person, and it said Lenox Hill. I'm like, oh fuck, this is where I was born. Was my response. So I haven't been back to the city. I've lived in Arizona now for like 18 years, so I've only been back to the city once in that time. So like just getting to swing around there and rapidly and getting to explore it literally made my heart sore playing that
Sure.
game. Even though some of the story was emotionally crushing, but people haven't finished it here, so never mind.
I've only played 2 hours. Be gentle.
It's my only platinum.
And we'll move on to Derek.
That good, huh?
Okay, so I finally got around to, this is where you're all allowed to yell at me and call me a big nerd. Finally got around to Super Robot Wars X. Aura Battler Dunbine just showed up. It's a big crossover game, like Fire Emblem style, between a bunch of classic and famous mecha anime franchises. I have huge like memories. I grew up, I loved Dunbine a lot, which is kind of a weird, not super well known one. And that theme starts playing, and it's like this cool new instrumental arrangement. And they've got like the horns blaring over where Mio used to sing. And it was just like, teenage years watching anime online illegally coming back to me. Like,
None of that meant anything to me, but
yeah,
I'm
well,
glad you
there's
liked it.
one person on the internet who's not watching this show who gets it. So
Somewhere there's someone in the distance who's like,
somebody just talked about Dunbine.
Holy shit!
There are
I can
literally
feel it in
dozens
the
of us.
ether.
5 of us.
fine.
All right, Zach, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, so in Forza Horizon 4, there was an event where I had to race a train. But like it's not like a cool looking bullet train. It's a fucking Polar Express motherfucking train, and it's in the snow, and like you're jumping over it and there's snow all over the place. And like it's like one of the things I like about Horizon is that like it knows it's so dumb. Like it knows like what it's doing. It's like, yeah, you're racing a fucking train. Like you're gonna race a train and you're like in a dune buggy in the snow. It's really cold out and you're gonna take a jump and you're gonna go over it and it's gonna go toot toot while you fly over the top and it's gonna be
That sounds
really
like
cool.
Zach, that is the
I
most
need to
wholesome
game.
thing you've said all week. It's like,
I think that just sold me on the game.
Yeah, no, like it's such a joy. Like I feel so guilty because I didn't have a really good way to articulate it earlier, but it's just like such a stupid fun video game, and like I can check out mentally and just play that stupid game. I like Forza a lot.
As someone who's
choo-choos.
as someone who's dealing with a 3.5-year-old and a 5-month-old kid, stupid fun video games are a godsend. Just to
Okay.
have something that I don't have to care about.
I feel
I'd be
you.
right for you.
Yeah.
I just want to say that, like,
17 months apart.
Oh,
as soon as you said that, I just saw Amanda's eyebrow raise all the way to the top of her head. I was like, whoa. I was like, oh, here, yep, she feels you, man.
Thankfully got a good 3-year
Hey, don't call
difference.
me out on
But
Twitter. What's that?
Brandon, give us give us a good Overwatch feel, man.
All right, no, I don't play Overwatch anymore. So with Fortnite,
or give us a
there's
good
thing
Fortnite
you can
feel.
do. If you run up to someone and build like a bunch of walls around them and put a spike trap, the spike trap will activate in like a second or two and it'll kill them. So I pulled that off and I laughed for like 30 seconds straight. Because I saw somebody do it on a stream. So I was like, I could do that. All you gotta do is build 4 walls of the roof over some guy and then put the spike trap.
I missed
It
the wholesome
worked.
content.
Never mind.
It's
That's
so,
the
like,
most
it's so,
wholesome thing I've
it's
heard
so
all week.
demoralizing to get killed that way.
I love how
I've been killed that way by
everybody,
players that-
everybody's offering
take
these
somebody's
wholesome,
hope away. It was amazing.
everybody's offering these wholesome anecdotes, and Brandon's like, I
I ruined the guy's
demoralized the
hope.
fuck out of this guy. It was great.
I
It was
made him
great.
log off.
Basically, I'll install the game. Kind of thing.
Permanently.
Amanda and Mike, and then I'll go.
Come on, you got a good one.
What?
It's all your selfies.
No, I wasn't gonna do that one because somebody already. Does it have to be a recent one?
It doesn't have to. No, yeah, that's fine. It doesn't have to be too recent. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there's a reason I was saying. So have you guys seen the new Bumblebee trailer?
Yes. Those G1
Okay.
designs, baby.
So you know when Soundwave ejects Ravage?
Yes. Yes, I do.
So
I have
one of
no
the
idea what you're talking
times
about, but
that
keep going.
Okay. So one of the High Moon, like I think it was the original. I think it was
War for
War for
Cybertron.
Cybertron?
Yeah.
when you fight Starscream for the first time and he's ejecting sets
Oh,
and
it's
you gotta
so
get
good.
it. I'm like, oh my god, this is my freaking childhood all over again. And I'm just like,
I love
yes,
it. I
yes,
fucking love
give
that
me
game.
more. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
fantastic.
guess what I'm saying is give me more Transformers.
God, oh my, I would
Good
love
ones.
more G1 Transformers games, man. Oh my lord. Amanda, what about you?
Okay, so it's not my moment, but it's been watching our youngest son play Spider-Man
Awesome.
because he's playing Spider-Man right now and he's 7. So the last few nights that he's been playing it, he's like, I'm so hot right now. He takes his shirt off. He puts his headset on, which is this tiny little Triton headset he's been using since he was 5.
Nice.
and he'll grab his controller, he'll sit down on the Yogi Bo, and he'll just start playing. And watching this child play this game is exceptional. Gabriel, I swear to God, he's a savant of kind. I don't understand
That's
it.
fantastic.
But the boy is absolutely brilliant. And I'm not just saying this because I'm his mom, although maybe I'm saying this a little bit because I'm his mom. But at the same time,
I don't know. I
that
remember
kid's a
how
way
much.
better gamer than me, and I've been doing it for a real long time.
Yeah,
that's not
like I
okay.
remember how much I sucked when I was 7.
He's amazing. Like that kid, watching him swing through New York, and like he's gasping at some of the things he's remembered seeing. He's been to one. And he'll just go swing around where we saw the big Christmas tree, and he's like, "Look, Mama, we've been there." And I'm like, "How do you remember this? It was last year."
Well, and that was the thing. Like
That's amazing.
We went up to the city on a date, and Amanda, I'm like, I have to show you this. And I swung through Washington Square Park.
It was great. I'm like,
so
"Look, we
good.
played Pokemon Go over there."
Yep.
That's so good.
Spider-Man, seriously, it's provided so many great moments for the family. I mean, James is playing it around here. The boys are playing it. Vivian, our almost 6-year-old, is like, "I'm gonna beat Fisk."
Hell yeah. Hell
So
yeah,
it
she's
is
gonna
a
beat Fisk.
joyous time around here with Spider-Man. And of course, I haven't had like any time at all to play it because now I'm hooked on Destiny 2 again, and it's stressing. But at the same time, I'm really way better at shooters than I remember.
I'm terrible at shooters. I'm terrible.
I haven't lost
Same.
my edge.
So
Can I throw a
it's a
kid one out really
thing.
quickly, John?
No, please,
Can I
please.
just? So I was just gonna say, my wife's birthday was a couple weeks ago, and for some reason, a couple days beforehand, she's like, "Can you go on eBay and buy me a Game Boy Micro?" And I'm like, "Go, sorry, what now?" And I don't know if you know, they're stupidly expensive.
Like, well, I'm curious.
So I ended up getting one that claimed it was not in great condition for $100. It turned out to be phenomenal condition. But the reason she sold me, she's like, our oldest Roran, she's like, Roran can play it, and I'm like, okay, let's get the kid a system kind of thing. So we handed it to him thinking he wouldn't know anything. A kid spins it around, turns it on, and starts playing Pokemon Fire Red. 3.5-year-old. To be clear, when I say playing it, his response is, "I'm gonna go play in the elevators," because he sees doors that look vaguely elevator-like. Because my wife left off her game from 15
Awesome.
years ago, and he just keeps riding the elevator up and down. That's it's nothing, and he just keeps talking about it. And I'm like, I videotaped the whole thing because it was one of the best moments of my entire life, watching my kid start to turn into a gamer
That's
before
fantastic.
my eyes.
That's fantastic.
So that, if I thought about that before, that would have been
No,
my
don't worry about it, man. Mine also involves my son. I talk about it often, but I didn't have much of a dad growing up. We'll just say he wasn't a great father. We'll leave it at that. I have tried to not make the mistakes that my dad did, and I realized that I was successful just last week. I don't get to see my son very often. We get him 2 weekends a month, so I don't see him. We live about 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away from each other, so I don't see him very often. And they were talking in class just last week about things that they what they like to do with their spare time. And it got to my son, and he said, "Well, my favorite thing to do is play video games." And my son, we play a lot of Mario Kart together. We play a lot of Splatoon 2 together. And they said, well, why do you love video games so much? And he said, because it makes me feel like my daddy and I are together.
Nice.
That's so wholesome.
Quality, wholesome content.
And I was like,
That's as wholesome. That makes up for my Fortnite one.
Yeah, your Fortnite one was not wholesome.
Not wholesome at all.
His mother told me that, and when I learned that, it literally validated in my mind and in my heart every parenting decision I've made with him from the moment he opened his eyes to now. And
John,
so,
you're gonna make me cry.
I'm not trying to. But he
Bastard.
no, that's what he said. He said, "I love playing video games because it makes me feel like my daddy and I are together." So yeah, this chair I'm sitting in right now, I got like a big recliner over here you can't see, but when we're down here playing games together, right now his favorite movie is Spider-Man: Homecoming, so he sits in this chair and he calls himself the guy in the chair.
Ah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he says,
I'm
"Daddy."
crying now.
he says,
this is the worst.
he
You're
says-
the worst.
He says, "Daddy, when you're playing Spider-Man, I'm going to be your guy in the chair." So that's
Wholesome.
my story. There's my wholesome moment for games.
God, that's beautiful. This is the best way to end this podcast.
It really is. I know it's good.
That
It's
happy
good.
now.
So we'll go ahead.
This was a good question.
It was. Yeah, Rebecca, this was a fantastic question. Thank you for asking that. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here. We'll do some quick outros. Mike and Amanda, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Amanda Farrow. So the last name is Farough, not an Egyptian pharaoh, although maybe one day I will be.
Don't drink the black sarcophagus.
Halloween.
Don't
Drink the mummy juice.
No mummy juice. No. Also, ew, gross. You can also find me on the two websites. So I'm the managing editor of GameDaily.biz and SuperParent.com. So you can go find a lot of Mike's work also on GameDaily.biz. And your debut article is going to go up tomorrow on SuperParent.
Oh,
Awesome.
yeah, you gotta do that thing. So yeah, I am all at Variety called In-Game Economy. The first issue installment went up about Telltale and Telltale's brand value went up this week. So look for another one of those next month. On Twitter, I'm Footerish, Futtish. And let's see, I did some. But yeah, most of the time lately, it's Variety and Game Daily.
Awesome.
Hell yeah.
And you're doing fantastic work, both of you guys. Both of you guys are doing great.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love both of you guys. And Josh, where can people find you, my man?
Twitter at Bear Punch is the best place to find me. Pretty much, anywhere from gaming stuff to stuff with my kids to just rambling weird stuff to depression discussions. I discuss it all on Twitter, so that's the best place. I stream on mixer.com/concalpod with pretty much my entire team, but primarily I'm the one who runs that. And since I finally convinced my wife to let me get a nanny, I will actually be back to regular streaming again. Yay!
Isn't it the greatest thing in the whole world to get a nanny?
I mean, we had my mother-in-law, who's the best human being on the face of this earth, but she was just not reliable. So a nanny's a necessary thing at this case. But those two places, and then for anyone who's a fan of kind of funny content,
there we go. That's what I was going to ask about.
I will be on Tuesday, October 9th, co-hosting Kind of Funny Games Daily with Greg Miller.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Wow! Congratulations.
And since Justin would, thank you. And since Justin wasn't sure if we were allowed to announce it when he was on, he'll be hosting it the October 8th, Monday, the day before. So we'll be doing back-to-back constant calibrating takeover.
That's pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I wish we were going to be there closer together in time.
Yeah,
the
John,
moment you announced your November one, I was like, God,
November.
I honestly legitimately looked into if we could change it for a second because I wanted to see if we could do back-to-back days.
I don't want you changing it on my account, man. But that's fantastic.
Oh,
congratulations,
no.
dude. You guys,
I'm not.
You
Thank
guys
you.
deserve it. You guys deserve it. And just a quick little bit of housekeeping. Yeah, I myself will be on Kind of Funny Games Daily, hosting with Greg Miller on November 15th. I've got my plane tickets and my Airbnb ready to go. We are going to be putting out. We're continuing. We got a Spider-Man spoiler talk coming. I think tomorrow.
It's done. Yeah, it's done. It just needs to be. Yeah, we just need to finalize some stuff.
Yep.
Similarly, Justin, who was on earlier, he did it. And the role of Feast in humanizing Spider-Man / Peter Parker. He did an article read. The article you can find on our Medium, but otherwise his article read should be up this weekend. John, we've got a stream coming up this weekend too, right?
We do. We have got. We've got a. So this weekend we're going to be doing a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tournament for SDGC and some of the people who listen to us. So if you want to be a part of that, hit me up on Twitter and we'll get you in. We're going to be streaming that. We're going to do some more pre-recorded content this weekend.
Yep. John, you've got a review. You've got a review next week. I've got a review sometime next week. So we've got stuff in the pipeline.
Things are picking up. Things are heating up on the SDGC front. And yes, Julian, I'm going to be on Kind of Funny. I thought you knew that. I'm going to be on Kind of Funny on November 15th, hosting with Greg Miller.
So before we go, again, everybody, thank you so much to our three guests. There's so many of us tonight. I feel like there's a lot
show,
of
yeah.
Just appreciate everybody's time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm ecstatic to be here. As I've been telling John, I've been wanting to come on this for a while. It was the kid situation.
Yeah, I've wanted
to
you on. Justin was great, and you were great, and you guys deserve. I'm so happy about Kind of Funny for you guys.
Stop.
You guys deserve the best, man. You guys are fantastic.
Oh, it's a love fest. This is what I.
This is what happens when John talks kid, we all get emotional.
Everybody gets
about it.
goopy. Yeah,
Yeah.
Melty.
everybody's
Yeah.
hearts start melting all
Yeah.
over the floor. But so
It's
so
okay.
yeah,
He's
we are
gonna
now
yell at me later.
we are now half an hour over our time, but it's because we just love talking to all you guys.
It's okay. I don't think anyone's upset.
Yeah, nobody cares. But I do know Zach is like, please let me go to sleep.
I just want to go to bed. I gotta work.
So we will go ahead and we will sign off. We will back. No, I will not. Nope. And to answer the question in chat real quick, no, I have not watched my beanie since I got it. I have not. I probably need to watch this thing. But now everybody's telling me to watch the beanie, so I'll probably watch the beanie. Anyway, it's not always poetry, and we don't always agree, but we always keep it real. So until next week, everybody take care of each other. We'll see you later.